Okay, last time we began Perek Chaf, Mishkal HaChasidus, and we started to discuss the fact that the Yetzer Hara sometimes gets involved in a way that we don't even recognize the bias. Sometimes there can be biases that we don't even recognize, and they color the way that we look at situations. I want to give you two examples in Torah of such a thing, and then we'll move on, because I think I said in the last share that this share we're going to talk about the biases within ourselves, right? The last time we talked about biases regarding others, but we also talked about that there can be biases within ourselves. But first of all, let me give you two examples. One of them is from Chumash, and one of them is from Navi. The one from Chumash, very interesting, is three malachim come to Avram Avinu's tent, and one of the malachim says that Sarah is going to have a child. Vatitzchak Sarah b'kirba leimar acharei beloisi hoisa liedna va'adoni zakein. After I'm no longer able to have children, I'm going to have a child, and my husband is so old. So she rejected, with a tzchaik, with like a laugh, she rejected the possibility of her having a child. And on her madrega, HaKadosh Baruch Hu considered it to be a lack of emunah. Like when the Malach said, even though she thought he was an Arab, when the Malach said she's going to have a child, she should have said, Ka Yomer Hashem, like that's what Hashem should say. She shouldn't have rejected it. So Avram Avinu apparently, HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns to Avram Avinu and says, Lama zetzachak Sarah leimar. Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she reject what the Malach said? And apparently Avram Avinu brought that complaint to Sarah herself. So did Sarah say, "Ooh, I realized I did that. I'm so sorry"? Was that Sarah's reaction? No. Vatechachesh Sarah leimar. Sarah denied. She contradicted. And she said, Lo tzachakti, I did not laugh. Ki yoreya, because she was afraid. And Avram Avinu said to her, Vayomer lo ki tzachakt. And Avram Avinu said, no, you did laugh. She lied. The great Sarah Imenu spent her entire life serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Mesiras Nefesh, gets Musar from the Gadol Hadar, her husband, and says, why did you laugh? And she was busted, like she knew that, I'm saying, Avram Avinu was a Navi. It wasn't like he saw it online. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him that she laughed. And she's like, no, I didn't. Lo tzachakti. What's the pshat? The pshat is that she herself didn't realize that she laughed. The pshat is that in her reaction, she wasn't able to discern that bias in herself. She wasn't able to recognize in the 99.9% of Emunah and Avodas Hashem that there was a little nuance there, a little thread that was rejecting and saying, are you kidding me? And Avram Avinu said, why did you laugh? She said, Lo tzachakti, I didn't laugh. That's how the Welt explains this. Let me ask you something. What does it mean, ki yoreya, because she was afraid? What does that mean? It should say ki lo yada, because she didn't know. She didn't realize. Why did she say, the pasuk sounds like she denied because she was afraid. Did you take the cookie from the cookie jar? No, I didn't, because I'm afraid. I don't want to admit that I did it. That's what it sounds like, right? So if I'm going to say that she said I didn't laugh because she didn't realize, what does the pasuk say ki yoreya, that she was afraid? And that's where today's share of Mesilas Yesharim comes in. That sometimes it's hard for us to recognize things about ourselves because we're afraid. Sometimes it's difficult for us to come to terms with hakaros about ourselves. She didn't want to be that person that laughed. She didn't want to incur the midas hadin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She didn't want to be someone who did something that the Melech Malchei Hamlachim would find displeasure from. So she said, Lo tzachakti, I didn't laugh. And the Torah reveals to us the hidden motive behind her lack of self-awareness. Dovi, this is like a incredible pasuk, no? Loi tzachakti, I didn't laugh. Ki yoreya. The Torah HaKadosh Baruch Hu digs so deep, and he finds the thread of tzchak that she herself didn't know she had, and then explains where that came from. Ki yoreya, because she was afraid. And Avraham Avinu says, look again. You did laugh. Look again. Sarah Yemenu looks deeper, discovers the bias, understands the reason for the bias, and corrects it within herself. That's a mashal from the Torah of how biases affect us. This one was actually an internal bias, more like what I wanted to speak about today. The next one is a little bit different. Not so much different, in a nuanced way it's different, but also very much shows a certain bias. And that is the Haftarah of Parshas Zachar. Haftarah of Parshas Zachar describes how the Navi Shmuel tells Shaul HaMelech to wage war against Amalek. That's why we laid in a Parshas Zachar. And Shaul, as we know, the first king of Klal Yisrael, wages war against Amalek, but he leaves the king alive. L'shem Shemayim, he has his cheshbainis, L'shem Shemayim, and he feels like it's a waste of good sheep to just kill them and not bring them for karbanos. He and the people feel a certain, it says, Vayachmo Shaul v'ha'am al meitav atzayin. He and the people feel that, like, yeah, we'll kill out all the animals. It's okay. We were told to kill the animals. We will. But some of them will kill by way of bringing karbanos. We're not going to just destroy them in battle. It was a big mistake. He was not told to do that. He was told to destroy me'ish v'ad isha, me'shar v'ad seh, me'gamo v'ad chamor, some kind of luncheon like that. He was told to kill all the animals. Why it's important to kill out all the animals is a good question. But he was told to kill out all the animals. So the Navi comes to him eventually, and Shaul is so confident that what he did was right that he greets the Navi by saying, Hakim Moisi es Devar Hashem. I listened to what Hashem said. Shmuel's like, what are the animals that I hear? We kept those animals alive to bring for karbanos. Says, you call that Hakim Moisi es Devar Hashem? Hashem said to kill the animals. So Shaul says, no, I did listen to the Devar Hashem. I wanted to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim by bringing animals as karbanos. So Shmuel responds back. It's a very tough conversation to read. Shmuel responds back. Hinei shamoya mizevach toiv lahakshiv me chelev elim or something. It says, listening is better than a carbon. You wanted to bring a carbon to Hashem? You know what a good carbon to Hashem is? When I tell you to do something, you do it. That's a good carbon to Hashem. It's not up to you to decide how to serve me. I told you how to serve me. This was a grave mistake. Yiddishkeit does provide us with tremendous areas of creativity in our Avodas Hashem. But sometimes we're told exactly how to do something. Eat matzah on the night of the 15th of Nisan. If you decide to eat Hamantasha that night, you could have the best reason in the world. Listen to what Hashem told you to do. Okay? We wear tefillin for Shachris. Imagine if Mishael decided that he wants to spend the whole day being mizbainin in the greatness of tefillin, then he'll wear tefillin for Ma'ariv instead. You know? So, very holy thoughts, you know? No. Hashem tells you to do something, we do it the way Hashem told us to do it. Do you think Shaul HaMelech knew that, Yisrael? I think we could assume that Shaul knew that. So Shaul HaMelech at that moment does tshuva, and he says, Chatasi ki avarti espi Hashem. Perish pasuk. I sinned, I violated the words of Hashem. And then he says, Ki yoresi es ha'am. I was afraid of the people. I was afraid of the people. What happened to you wanted to bring karbanos? What happened to all the L'Shem Shemaim? Suddenly the big reveal, I was afraid of the people? The people wanted to keep those animals alive. I was afraid to say no to them. What's the pshat? The pshat, Pasha pshat, is that Shaul is saying, I now recognize that even though I thought I was thinking clearly, I thought I was making a clear decision, but I wanted the people to be happy with me. I wanted people to, there was a little bit either of intimidation or a sense of trying to please, or a sense of even trying to please for the best reasons because I want to give to people. But ki oresi asam, a melech is supposed to be the one that sets the standard. The standard is not set for him. And he mixed the role up. The Gemara says that the downfall of Shaul HaMelech was his humility. Because humility means to be humble, to do like HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. It doesn't mean to be humble from people. It means to be humble from Hashem. Memela, 99% of the time, means to be humble from people as well. But sometimes there's such a thing as vayigba libay b'darkei Hashem. Sometimes a leader has to get up and be a strong leader. Say this is the right thing. Like Moshe Rabbeinu says, Mila Hashem Elai. Like Matisyahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who stands up in the face of the Yevanim and says, Mila Hashem Elai. Imagine if Matisyahu was like, I don't know, the people aren't holding that way. We wouldn't have an Es Chanukah today. We wouldn't exist today. Sometimes you need to not be so yoresi as not to be afraid of the people. But the point is that Shaul, he wasn't a baby. Shaul was an enormous tzaddik and Talmud Chacham. Enormous, beyond comprehension. What the Pasuk is revealing to us is a strand in Shaul HaMelech's personality that was so minor, it was so delicate, it was so subtle, that Shaul HaMelech himself didn't notice it. Until Shmuel pointed out, you did the wrong thing. And Shaul had to ask himself, what could possibly have made me make the wrong choice? I'm such a tzaddik. I always want to do what Hashem wants. What could have unbalanced the scales here? Oh, ki yoresi asam. I was afraid of the people. I wanted the people to like me. That can be a very powerful thing, even if it's very subtle. So you see this idea that there are subtleties deep inside of us that are very they're important. Some of you are going to eventually be in positions professionally that you're in helping positions. Social work, whatever, things like that. Nursing, if you become a nurse, we'll see. And even those of you that are not looking to be in helping positions professionally, but Amir Hashem, all of you will be involved in your communities and your families and be people that people come to for help. When you're in a helping position, you have to really, really sometimes look deeply at your motivation. Very, very, very deeply. Not Pasha. It's not Pasha. Why am I helping? What's motivating me here? Sometimes, I can tell you for myself that sometimes I find myself making a boundary. I'm sorry, I can't help you. No. And when I do that, I have to ask myself, where's that coming from? Is that coming from a place of chesed? Is that coming from selfishness? Is that coming because that person insulted me? Is that coming because I didn't realize that I felt insulted, but underneath the surface I'm insulted? Is it coming because that person's triggering another event in my life or a past event that I went through that I have a negative association with? What's making me suddenly be a boundaried person about this particular person? And then the other way is true also. What happens? It happens in life when you're in a helping position that somebody decides they don't like how you helped, or they don't like you. Okay? What happens, Dovi, what happens if you put kaichais into helping someone? Okay, let's say you put kaichais, time, energy, caring, above and beyond, even questioning yourself if you gave too much. And then suddenly from one day to the next, silent treatment. The line turns cold. No more phone calls. ignoring you in the street. Done. Okay, everybody in a helping position deals sometimes with not healthy people. These things happen, right? What happens when 2 years later you get a text message? I really need your help. I know I haven't been in touch. Can we talk? What's the right response, Mr. Therapist? Is the right response, of course I'm here to help. Of course. Why? Because I'm desperate to figure out why did you stop talking to me? And what did I do wrong? And I'm so happy to be vindicated now.
Is that true?
Or is the right response, I'm sorry, something unhealthy and dysfunctional happened here. Go to someone else. Or is the right response to say, I'm Michael what happened. It's not about me. I'm Michael what happened. Of course, how can I help? Back to square one. Or is the right response to say, clearly, I'm not the right shliach for you. Michel's going out of his mind. What he wants me to do is what I think I want to do also, is to say, look, something unhealthy happened here.
Yeah.
If we can clarify that, maybe we can move forward. If we can't, then we can't. But what's motivating? Yehuda, do you understand that I wonder if the motivation is validation? The motivation is, so now you need me. Is that the motivation? Because if that's the motivation, I'm sure Dovi would agree that it's not a healthy foundation for helping someone. I should see my own therapist for that. I should not be helping someone because I need a pat on the back. So do you understand what I mean? That a simple text message or phone call, what's motivating that? Have you ever been by a shir with a Maggid shir? Probably none of you have ever experienced this. But have you ever been by a shir where the Maggid shir spoke for too long? You never, right?
Always.
Have you ever been to a shir, a guest speaker? We'd like to introduce the following great Rav who's going to speak. And he just goes on, and you were excited to hear him speak. And he was supposed to speak for a half hour. Now it's 40 minutes, 50 minutes. And then, as Dovi loves so much, he says, I'll end with this. Right? And then he doesn't end with this.
Oh my God,
and then he says, and one other thing. And then he says, and before I end, I want to just point out one ha'ara about what I said earlier.
It's only going on Tuesday morning.
Okay?
Tuesday morning, that's good.
Ethan, you look like you've been to speeches like that.
I hear it all the time.
You love it, right? You love it?
They're like teasing us.
It's amazing because when they're speaking, those of us, and I think this is a chevra, very emotionally aware people, you look at the guy incredulously. Like, do you realize that right now you are holding 100 prisoners that don't want to be here? Do you feel it sometimes that the mood in the room shifted and everyone is like, you can hear it sometimes, the chairs start shifting? Why does the person continue? Why didn't the person just speak for a half hour? Why? Okay, there are some people, Rav Aaron Shechter Zeichet Tzadik Livracha, would get involved in a sugya, and he literally lost all concept of time. He used to give shir for 2.5 hours straight. He lost all concept of time while he was learning. Okay, you could be Michael, a person who was supposed to drive to the country with his family for the summer, and they packed up the car, and the whole family's waiting in the car, and he's about to get in. They say he wasn't the best driver, but he was young. He gets into the car. And I heard this from his family, and he says, I just want to look up one other sefer. And they sat in the car for hours waiting for him to come out. And I'm not sure who the gadol in the story is. He who looked up a sefer and lost all track of time of what was going on and just became totally subsumed in a sugya, or the family that sat patiently in the car for a few hours because the Abba was learning. I don't know who the gadol is even here in that story. What? It is a real story. Okay? Okay, maybe one of the kids was throwing rocks at the window, I don't know. But anyway, the point is that such a person, I could be Michael for doing that. You could see it. Sometimes you could see a person just get so wrapped up in Avas HaTorah that you just like, he's holding me prisoner, but he doesn't chap. I could be Michael that. But sometimes it doesn't seem that way. Sometimes it seems like there's something else going on. And you know what I think sometimes is the case? Not to chas v'shalom point fingers at anyone in particular, and I'm not thinking about anyone in particular. But I can tell you myself as a speaker that these feelings come up. I'm supposed to speak short. Please speak for 10 minutes. I'll give you an example of something that could happen. It could happen to you. Yehud, I want you to speak for 10 minutes to the Olam. Okay, you prepare, you have 10 minutes of material, it's understandable, it's clear, you have good examples, you're bringing out your point, you have a good maisa, a mashal, you're going to bring it out emotionally and intellectually, and you're ready with a good speech. But then you look at the crowd, and you see that your Rebbe from Eretz Yisrael decided to come listen to you. And while you're speaking, in the back of your mind, you're like, he's going to think I don't know how to learn. Because I really kind of like lowered the level for this, because I really wanted to be clear and simple and short. I did have another ha'ara and another 4 kashas. Rebbe is here. Maybe I should say the extra. You can't see yourself thinking that? What happens when this Rav is wrapping up his half hour, and he just feels like it was underwhelming. It was just underwhelming. Like, he doesn't feel like he wowed the Olam yet. Ki yoresi es ha'am. So he wants to do more. Of course, it's counterproductive, because with every minute that he tries to do more, he's doing less. And of course, you and I are listening to a drush, and it sounds simple. We don't walk out and say, the guy's not a Talmud Chacham. We walk out and say, wow, in addition to being a Talmud Chacham, he speaks so clearly. That's what we do. But it's counterproductive. But the point is that decisions are made by people without even realizing it that are biased decisions. And the first step is not to not make those decisions. The first step is to at least have an awareness of the decision. At least have an awareness of it. Last night was the big Iraisa Siyah. Unbelievable thing. The whole Seder Mayid. Unbelievable. And I'm very proud, because a Waterbury Talmud and a Waterbury young man is the one who created the whole Iraisa. Pretty amazing, right? And I love him, and I love the program, and I'm excited that they're starting Masechta Yavamis this week. I advise everyone to join Iraisa for Yavamis. We're learning it anyway. And it's starting on Wednesday, Beis Amud Aleph. An Amud a day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday and Shabbos you chazer the 2.5 block from the week. It's awesome. Every day you chazer yesterday's Amud. You do Daf Yomi. But you don't do Daf Yomi of a new Daf. You do Daf Yomi where half of it is yesterday's Amud and half of it is today's Amud. So you chazer every Amud twice, and then on Shabbos you chazer a third time. Shema. Very excited about it. I was always a big fan of it. And I went to see him. My kids were there. And a lot of friends. My Mechutna was there. My Kielson was there. And a lot of Waterbury Chevra that do Iraisa were there. And I saw people from all over the place. And my Rav, Rabbi Hapfer, was there. I got to see him. It was very, very nice. And I was very, very, very excited to be there. And then they put me, and I knew this before, I had a seat on the dais. You know, because I'm a super chashuv person. So I had a seat on the dais. On the middle dais. So I don't know where it started, the chashuv one, but I was the middle one. So I don't know if it was going up or down, but I was the middle dais. You know, every dais, it was very complicated. When they send you where they are, it's not just which level you're on, it's also the closer you are to the center, the more chashuv you are. Okay? I don't know who gets a list from HaKadosh Baruch Hu of who's most chashuv. And the truth is, if we got a list from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, probably some of the people sitting in the audience would be coming up to because there are a lot of very, very chashuv people there. And who's to judge other people's chashivas? Certainly not the length of a beard. That's not a measure of chashivas. But anyway, I was sitting I've sat on daises before. It was very pretty dais with flowers and little lamps in front of everyone. It was very pretty. And I was sitting there. I was actually writing a chabura that I gave on Sunday. I thought the flowers covered my pens. I was able to write some of the time. I listened to the drushes. It was very nice to be close up and to watch the Lakewood Rosh Hashiva and then the Rabbi Ozeri. It was like unbelievable. You've heard, you know? So I know him also for a long, long time ago, before he was Rabbi Ozeri. Yeah, what? I'm not in touch with him, no. But he knows my father. But remind me after. I'll tell you something interesting about that. But a lot of interesting speeches. A lot of Rabbi Elephant from Eretz Yisrael spoke. I wasn't expecting it because he's known for like his blunt style and his down to earthness. That's what he's known for, and I'm excited. He's a very valuable person to have a connection with. In fact, when I saw him before, I arranged to meet with him when I go to Eretz Yisrael in a week and a half. But what I was blown away from was the machshava that he said. He got up to speak, say Divrei Bracha, and he spoke like he was like. Not only was the machshava itself very thought provoking, but the delivery was very sophisticated. And I'm a Chaim Berliner. I have very high standards for machshava. So to me, his word was the best word of the night. I was very blown away from it. But anyway, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, you know my personality. I'm sitting on a dais, thinking about sitting on a dais. Right? You're not surprised, right? I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I'm thinking about, am I leaving later because I'm on the dais? Like, would I have left already if I was downstairs? And if I'm leaving later because I'm on the dais, is it because I don't think it's nice for the dais to be empty in the middle of the siyum? Or is it because, Lamaisa, every once in a while the camera pans the dais, and I want to be there with my, with my good looks on the dais? Is that the reason? Is that there? And in the beginning, I didn't fully feel that I had that there. You should know. I accepted to sit on the dais because I thought it would be good for my shul. But while I was sitting there, I was wondering how much of it was true. Like, what if it was good for my shul to sit in the basement? But I've been as enthusiastic to sit in the basement. And what's the MS behind? Yeah, l'shem shamayim, l'maisa. One Rav told me the only reason I'm here is for Kavod HaTorah. And maybe that was true. And it was a tremendous Kavod HaTorah. And that Rav had gone to tremendous Mesiras Nefesh to be there. Was it also because he was tremendously honored? Is that also a part of it? It's interesting, right? I am not saying that I should not have sat on that dais. And I am not saying that Rav should not have come to the Siyum. What I'm saying is that both of us, him and his madrega, which is much higher than mine, but that each one of us should be able to honestly assess what's going on inside of us. And when we lose the ability to honestly assess what's going on inside of us, we lose the ability to grow in Ruchnius. And our ability to be close to Hashem comes from not making declarations about ourselves that are not consistent with the emes of what's happening inside. One day you'll have a 10-year-old son, Be'ezer Hashem, and that 10-year-old son, this is not part of the bracha, but it's part of reality, will be chutzpahdik to you. And you will respond to that chutzpah, as you should. But will you respond as you should? In other words, will you respond because you're insulted, or will you respond because you're a father who has to be mechanech his child? It's a very big question. One day, your daughter will be offered a shidduch. And the other family that's being suggested for your daughter is one of the well-known multi-billionaire Orthodox Jews. Will you approach that shidduch with the same focus of, is this guy the right husband for my daughter? Will you push your daughter an iota more because l'maisa billions of dollars? I'm saying not that you'll have the billions of dollars, but you'll be associated with that. Will that push you an iota more? What do you think? Will it push you an iota more?
No.
Of course it will. The question is, will you know that it is? Because if you know that it is, you could correct for it. If you could be honest with yourself and say, I think the money is pulling at me a little. Because ki hashaychad ya'aver einei chachamim. Money pulls. Can I be honest with myself about that? I'm asked to speak somewhere. I have a situation going on. I'm being asked to speak somewhere. I'm not sure I should speak there. is the scales equal? Or is the fact that it is a big covet to be a guest speaker somewhere pulling me a little bit in that direction and perhaps helping me make the wrong decision? I don't know what the right thing to do is, but I know it starts with recognizing that. It starts with knowing that about myself. Now, do I have to be so honest with you about it? No, not necessarily. I mean, here in Mesilas Yesharim, we have to be vulnerable and open, or else we're playing games. But I'm saying in general, I don't have to tell the person, I think it might be for my covet, I don't know if I'll do it. That's not normal. You know, outside of this table, we should try to be normal. Okay? But inside our hearts, we have to have a recognition of that. We have to know that. That's what's very, very important. Okay, let's just read one line. I don't want to leave us without any moving forward in Mesilas Yesharim. The Mesilas Yesharim said, "Ube'emes shelo yuchal ish lahatzliach b'mishkol hazeh elo b'shloisha dvarim." A person cannot be matzliach in balancing the shaychat of the Yetzer Hara, the bribery of the Yetzer Hara, unless he has three things. And the first thing is, we could spend our life trying to get here, is sheyeh liba yashar shebelevavos, that his heart should be the straightest of hearts, to be straight. Shaloitia pniyasai, that his entire focus should be elolasos nachas ruach lefanov yisbarach v'lo zulas ze klal. To learn to grow. We're not there yet, but to try to grow, to focus, to bring ourselves to a point that my purpose is to give HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas. The more that I am focused on giving HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas, the more my view is clear. In other words, should I speak long? Should I be on a dais? Should I say yes to that shidduch? Should I be hard on my kid? Should I close this business deal? Should I be doing business with these kinds of people? All of those questions, the more the focus of my life is to bring nachas to Hashem, the more likely I am to be examining the situation in an honest way. And this is not a on and off switch. It's a spectrum. And we'll never reach a point in our lifetime, as long as we have the Yetzer Hara, that we're 100% L'Hashem. That's a sign of us in Lavai. And we're for sure not 100% away from Hashem. The goal in our lives is to move the needle over a lifetime, to try to be more and more focused on Lasos Nachas Ruach L'Yitzrei. Yashikaya.